Now we're going to go over the basics of how to edit existing content, what our baseline is for where we start for when we release a new module, and how you can create new content. So first important step is to turn editing on. I know it's not on yet because the button is available. Now it says turn editing off, so I know editing's on and I'm ready to go. If I scroll down, we'll go into mod 7 so you can see what a totally invisible fresh module looks like. So I know it's not visible yet because it's still grayed out. And if I click on it, all of the introduction here and all of the content is all gray, as opposed to if I go down to the active module, everything's orange. That means it's visible, and if it's gray, it's invisible. It's not a hard and fast rule. Some of the objects pick up the code basically to show up differently when it's invisible, and some don't, so it's always important to double check, but that is a great way to get a first assessment. So to edit the space up here, whether it's the photo or any of the text that shows up above the summary of coursework, we click the little gear either here or over here. You can do both, or you can click edit and you can make the section visible. You can delete the section, you can highlight it to make it the active primary section, or you can edit. So we're going to go in and edit. And now you could edit the name that shows up. Here's the photo we have, and then all of the text shows up down below this. You can edit like a regular text editor, you know, like Word. If that's easier for you, you can change some formatting details up here. So if it's collapsed like this, you click this button on the far left to expand your options here. So really basic: bold, italic, you know, bullet points, where to align the text, all that good stuff. If you want to edit the HTML itself, you click this button here, and it will bring up the code for you. I won't get into any of that right this moment, but this is basically if you wanna make a change at the HTML level, that's how to go about it. And then you click that button again, and it'll bring you back to a regular word processing view. So I'm gonna leave this area. As I mentioned, that's just for this introduction area at the top of the section. Then we get down into these individual pieces of content, and these are a number of different things. We have labels that make up the section headings and also give us these line breaks every so often, and we put in spaces sometimes. It's a little bit of a hacky way to style and format our text on the page. And then we also have, these are called pages when they have the little blue page on the side, and most of our content is delivered this way. We also have discussion forums that have these little talk bubble icons next to them, and those are really the three styles you're going to be working with. So if we wanted to edit a piece of content, you can do that either by clicking on it directly from here with editing turned on, or you can go into edit and you can do a handful of useful things here. You could move the alignment, you could make the content visible, you could duplicate it, which can be handy if you're making lots of pieces of content one after the other that are similar. You could delete it, or you could assign different roles. We're not going to do much with the assigning roles, most especially, but for now we'll go into edit settings. And then similar to the editing page for the introduction area, you've got the name at the top and a description, which we don't have descriptions for most of our regular pieces of content. There's a few in the orientation, and occasionally we release a recording of a gathering or something like that with a description, but for the most part this area will be blank. And then if you scroll down further, you're in this content area and you can look at the page content. So we have these buttons, next section and previous section buttons that we've that we've written into these pages, and then there's text, and then some sort of media, whether it's a link to a website, a bit of audio, a video, or a link to a document. So I'm going to quickly go into the HTML so you can see a little bit of this. This is the div class that we've created for those buttons, and so some of our work is making sure that those buttons function properly because they're not actually a feature of the site, and so ensuring that this link is in fact the next piece of content that we want someone to go to. Most of the style details can stay untouched because they're pretty well established at this point, but occasionally if we add a new piece of content, or sometimes when we clone a course, this HTML gets scrambled in the process, and so we always go through and check that all these buttons are working and that all of these links, as I said, do in fact point to the correct pieces of content. Then we have our paragraph, our actual text, or a couple of paragraphs, and then down here we have a link to the media, or let's see, first we have the transcript here. So the Moodle site hosts our documents for us, so I'll walk through that process in a moment here. And then down below that we have the link to SoundCloud and the player there, so this is an embed code that we get straight from the website. If I get out of the HTML editor, setting up links like this one to host content is as easy as highlighting a section, and then you create a link, and you can put either a URL in there, or you can hit this browse button and then choose file, and then you could navigate to any file anywhere on the saved locally on your computer and link to it that way. I'm going to just get out of this because I don't actually want to link to anything. So that's one example. The checkboxes, which I'll go over again when we get out to the main page, are controlled with this activity completion section. So most of the content is set to show activity is complete when conditions are met, and then we set the condition to a student must have viewed the activity, which essentially sets it up so that when someone clicks on a piece of content, the checkbox next to the name of the piece of content is automatically populated. The only other setting that you might end up using is to not indicate activity completion, which is what we'll do if we're setting up a label or a special piece of content near the end of the course that's up in the announcements section, where it looks kind of funky to have a checkbox next to it, and it's not something someone would have to keep track of whether they've gone through it or not. So most of the time you'll have this set to show activity is complete when conditions are met, and occasionally you'll want to not indicate activity completion. You can also go into this, you won't have to worry about appearance. This is where you can decide to show the description on the page if you want to, but you'll hardly ever have to do that. We never restrict access, so you won't have to worry with that. And if you wanted to make the content visible from this page, you could go in here and set this visible field to show, and that will make the content visible. And then if we hit, you can either hit save and display, and that will pop up the page for the piece of content, or I'm going to hit save and return to course. And then if we scroll down, that piece of content is now orange because we made it visible. And if I go into edit, the option here is hide as opposed to show, which also tells me that it's visible. Here's the little checkbox I was talking about that is automatically populated when someone completes an activity, and you can see it has these really faint little dash lines in it. That is your indication that it is set to automatically populate when someone meets the conditions. Another example, and I'm going to scroll down here because I already see that there's a little problem I have to fix, is this video has a checkbox next to it and it's solid all the way around. So I can make the content visible from out here. I can hit show and then it becomes orange and it's visible. But to fix the checkbox, I'm actually going to have to go in to the settings And if I go down here to activity completion, it's the defaults when we create a new piece of content to that students can manually mark the activity as completed, but that confuses people, and we tried that for a while and it didn't work. So I'm going to change it to setting conditions, check this box that people need to view it, and then if I click save and return to course, there we go. Now you'll see that those faint little dashed lines appear, and so when people click on this piece of content now, that box will automatically populate.